So Clippership is a company that's building and operating autonomous cargo sailboats. These are a lot smaller than your standard container ship. They're designed to operate across the ocean, right? So our first deployment is really from Europe to the US. The vessels we're building, essentially they reduce operating costs. If you delete the operating costs being fuel and crew, you can reduce the cost of carrying cargo below what container ships pay to do so. So we can be cost competitive with container ships. So we're building these little it's a new type of cargo vessel that doesn't burn fuel, and that one day, a couple of years out, we think, is not going to have anyone on board. Maritime autonomy exists, cargo sailboats exist. It's sort of really the coupling these two things together, which has not been done yet. Our customers are importers, typically based on the East Coast. What they're looking for is just a pallet native transport across the Atlantic that is, first of all, very transparent to them, with regular departures, cooled hold. We treat the cargo very, very well. Wine is very sensitive to temperature, so you can't just put wine in a regular 40-foot container because it'll get affected by potentially high temperatures that it's exposed to. And actually, the two things which appeal to them the most are the fact that A, we're actually a little bit cheaper than any other sort of dedicated way of transporting wine across the Atlantic. And we're also like the sustainable option, right? We don't burn any fuel making our way over, right? It's wind powered, so it's sort of inherently sort of the zero emission sustainable option, which within the maritime world is actually a big deal because it's one of those sectors which is kind of hard to decarbonize. So this is really one of the few real options that you can deploy right now to decarbonize. I think close to coming out the other side with a product we can deploy and transport cargo with. Our large vessel, we're undergoing the regulatory scrutiny right now and should be out of it within a couple of months, and then we'll be able to start building our large vessel which will carry cargo. Yeah, we use all of these shapes. This has been developed in Luminary. Every part of it, like the wing, even the hull, the aero side, we verified with Luminary. So a lot of the features on the hull, there's these sort of chamfers around the hull, even on the full-size vessel, which were suggested to the naval architects because of results coming from Luminary. We're developing fairly complex aerodynamic shapes. In order to do so in the sort of traditional way of going about CFD, we would have to, either buy a cluster, rent a cluster, pay for an expensive license for a more traditional CFD software. So like for a small company like ours, which is still trying to do like fairly ambitious aero work, there's really nothing else. Luminary is really fantastic. We have this wing, right? We have to get as much power out of it as possible. So we can sort of treat this as a flat airfoil, right? And just kind of go sort of flat plate or like panel method or something. But then we would just not get as much power as we need, right? So basically, we would have to grow the wing. Growing the wing makes it more heavy. That affects the whole stability of the vessel. That affects like cost of building the wing. So making this wing as small as possible while remaining very effective from an aero perspective is very, very important to us. There's a few reasons why Luminary was really great for us. The first reason is that it seems to be very well validated, essentially, right? So if it gives you a result, you can be fairly confident that it's going to be correct enough, as far as CFD, as much as you can trust the CFD simulation. It was also just like very easy to pick up and use. We didn't want to spend a ton of time sort of, going up the learning curve for a completely new solution. The solutions that we were familiar with, were a bit more useful for, much larger organizations with in-house clusters, which we did not have and don't plan to have. Getting a simulation back, getting the results of even a large simulation back within minutes is fantastic, right? Because, you can run a fairly complex simulation and have results back in 5-10 minutes, which is very different than your typical workflow where you run a simulation at night and then you sort of get your results next morning. It's actually fairly cost effective for us too, right? Even though we're paying for GPU hours essentially, it turned out to be cheaper than any other alternative. So yeah, a lot of reasons why it was right for us. I think like time to simulation, time to results is probably the most impressive. For me personally, actually, when we took the model to the tunnel, the fact that it was so close to the results was also a nice surprise. Perfecting a CFD model typically takes several trips to the wind tunnel to make sure to sort of have it match, but this matched pretty closely first time. Basically, getting good results out of Luminary didn't take years of development of a CFD pipeline. It was a lot quicker than that, so that was nice. I guess like it's just a lot more flexible, I would say, to use Luminary. It's also like a web-based thing, so you don't need to sort of install a bunch of stuff on your computer. particularly if you don't have an IT department. Like setting up that pipeline is sort of specialist knowledge, right? I wouldn't be able to set up a real CFD pipeline with a cluster and a sort of a front end easily, right? Whereas Luminary, you push a button, it's a web page essentially. Being able to sort of get results fast without spending a lot of time setting up a CFD pipeline is super important to us. Within 2 decimals for a CFD model to match a wind tunnel model is either just complete coincidence, like clock's right twice a day, or just insane accuracy. So I think it was probably, the accuracy was really, really good. I think there was probably a little bit of luck there, but within 2 decimal places, which was very, very high for a CFD model. The way the company operates is by, our cycle of design, build, test is as fast as we can, right? So our first large prototype, for example, we built that thing in 2 months. We got onto water in about a month, and we're testing the system to see if it works. This is for our second large full-scale prototype. This is roughly a 25-foot long wing. The way we move the boat is using the wind. So the shape of the wing that we use to propel the vessel is very important. So we try to get everything onto a boat and see how it fares out in sort of real maritime conditions. The main structure here is, this is sort of like a typical sort of aluminum aircraft wing design. So it's got the sort of central spars, got the stringers, got ribs. It'll have an aluminum skin, but all the edges, like the flaps and the leading trailing edge, will be carbon composite. So this is going to go on this sort of a 12-meter offshore boat. And that offshore boat, we're just going to send offshore into some bad weather and basically see how the wing does in those types of conditions. We don't just design something, build it to full scale immediately. So, we design something in CFD, and then we bring it to the wind tunnel. So this here is actually a wind tunnel model of this on the boat. So we take it to the tunnel, make sure that the aerodynamic behavior is what we expect, and then we quickly build it onto a real wing. This is an 11% scale model. We try to keep Reynolds number roughly similar. It was tested at fairly high wind speeds to sort of get that Reynolds number not matching, but close enough. It actually did really well. The CFD versus tunnel did really, really well. It was within a couple of decimal places, which was outstanding. We're a startup, we have to move really fast. So being able to get results fast, build prototypes faster, that ultimately gets to our final sort of customer-facing product faster. So in that sense, for sure, getting your simulation results back faster and sort of getting the pipeline set up faster definitely affects the business for sure.